If we've got military grade psychological manipulation going on in entertainment and popular culture, they are going to be not only capable of doing that in the so-called truth game, but it's going to be absolutely a key strategy to implant their agents into this scene. And going back to what I was saying earlier about how this Q white hat psyop, which is what I believe it to be, is the cruelest hoax ever perpetrated on humanity. Just think about these agents that they implant into this scene and what their full-time job is. Their full-time job is to mislead genuine people who want to help others and make this world a better place. Now, where does that put them spiritually, karmically? Can you imagine the karma that they're building up for themselves based on their behaviors and actions? Just imagine taking a paycheck for deliberately deceiving well-meaning people. That's got to be one of the worst places you can be in spiritually. So there is going to be a price to pay for those that have been knowingly duping all these people.
I think the last time we spoke, Mr. Mark Devlin, was in 2020. It was December 2020. And I was thinking about you the other week and I kept going, I've got to reach out and do a show with you. And the next thing you know, YouTube banned our video and took the video down and said that we put misinformation in the video. And then you contacted me. I think it was that week that I was thinking about you. So here we are. How are you? How are you doing after all this time? We started talking in the first year of the big hoax, and then now we're at the other end of it. Did you think you would make it?
I've had all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of emotions, all kinds of perceptions these past 3 years. What a bloody ride it's been, eh? And we're just about coming up on the 3rd anniversary, JC. That's interesting, isn't it? Because we reached out and connected, and we're just about to hit that point where all this madness started in March. Because I remember that I was due to come out to Australia in March of 2020. And I was going to be doing a mini speaking tour. Yes. And I was going to be leaving the UK on the 16th of March. And that was the very week that Australia got plunged into draconian lockdown. And then the following week, Boris Johnson popped up on UK TV screens and said he's shutting down the UK. So, yeah, 3 years. It feels like about 30 years sometimes. Yeah, sometimes I do wonder how we've made it through, because the amount of trauma, the amount of mind control, the amount of disruption to our lives, the amount of just bullshit that we've all had to deal with. No generation before in human history has ever had to deal with the level of psychological manipulation that's been thrown at us. So I think it's a triumph that 3 years later we're still here. We're still able to talk to each other, and we're still relatively sane, are we?
I feel like I've lived multiple lives. I know that the tour that you were talking about, because I was determined to go and see you. I'd paid for a ticket. And I believe it was, let me try and remember which one in Sydney it was. Was it
Club Burwood?
Burwood, that's it, Club Burwood.
Yeah.
I'd booked the ticket and everything, and then I couldn't believe it when they shut the borders down. I was so upset because I was determined.
So touch and go. It was so
determined
touch and go
to meet you.
Yeah, I could have got a flight out of the UK on the 16th.
But you couldn't get back.
But there was all this talk of, countries might be shutting down. And there was the very strong possibility that I could find myself stranded in Australia with no way of getting back.
Wow.
And I just couldn't take the risk. So I lost a huge amount of money. Obviously, people were disappointed because they wanted to come to the shows. And a couple of the gigs did go ahead. and I pre-recorded a video which was played on a screen at the venue, which was better than nothing, but it's not the same as being there.
No.
And I'm friends with Danny Rampling, the famous British DJ.
Yeah.
And he said that he was in Australia the week before I was due to fly out. And he got the last flight out of Perth back to London before they shut everything out. So he was so lucky. The very last flight that you could get out on before they locked it all down.
That's incredible. Crazy. It feels like a lifetime away. But we're here now, and I'm so glad you're back. And it's very interesting because a lot of my audience have watched my growth. My channel started, Mark, in the, September 2020. So I didn't have a channel when I wanted to watch you. Now, I was a huge fan of yours, respected your work. When I say fan, I don't want to make it like, Mark, but it was like such respect for your research. It was you and Mike Williams. I used to listen to you a lot, and you both taught me a lot about a lot of the psyops in the music and entertainment industry, sort of following on from David McGowan's work and things like that. So I think I've been following you since, it was definitely before my daughter was born, I think. So were you around 2015? It was definitely around that time, I think I started
I got started in 2011. So 2011. I've been putting my work out since 2011. So by the time COVID came along, I was an OG in this game. I was a veteran. There's a lot of people that popped up in 2020 as a result of what went on, but I'd already had 10 years in the game by that point.
You did. That's right. And yes, I definitely had been listening to your stuff a long time before. Probably 2013, 2014 is when I started really like diving into your work.
Right.
And so, there was a long time. I really wanted to meet you. I was like, I got this research that I've been doing. I'm going to show him. I got to, talk about this. I just had this whole idea that I was going to meet you. And who knew that I would end up with a channel? And then actually, you interviewed me in December 2020. And I know back then, what I love about you is, Mark, and I mean, you can talk a bit because there might be a few, most of my audience know you and they love you and they love your work, but some of them don't know who you are. You can give us a little rundown on that. But I do want to also say that one of the reasons why you do what you do is you have a natural skeptic sort of persona. You have this natural skepticism that questions everything. And you were one of the first people that was really, when you got pulled into a lot of the truther circuit, who was actually saying, I don't know. You were questioning it while the rest of us were going, no, there's good things. There's good things coming. Yeah, I've asked 100 questions there. So just whatever you want to talk about first and whatever pops in your mind, go for it.
Well, we did say that we wanted a real talk conversation, no bullshit. Let's just address elephants in the room. So in 2020, there was a lot of talk of this idea of the white hats, this Q plan, the idea that there was this coalition of military types who were intent on bringing down the deep state cabal. And we heard all sorts of talk about arrests that were taking place of high-profile individuals. We heard that doubles were being used. We heard that people like Hillary Clinton and Bill Gates and all this lot had been sent to Guantanamo Bay and executed, and they put doubles in their place to trick everyone into thinking they're still around. And this was all part of the plan, we were told. Trust the plan, we were told. We were told to just sit back. You don't need to do anything. You can grab the popcorn. That was a phrase that was often used, and just enjoy the movie because others have got this. And it looks chaotic. It looks crazy out there, but COVID was needed as a cover for what's really going on. There was talk of children being rescued from underground bases and tunnels and stuff. And all of this came along at a time where we, collectively, humanity, needed some hope more than ever before. We were seeing all this death, chaos, insanity going on around us. with all these COVID restrictions and lockdowns. It was horrible. 2020 was a horrible experience for everyone. Actually, 2021 was worse for me personally. 21 was an even worse year. But it was a horrible time to live through. So no wonder people were looking for some hope.
Yeah.
And so running concurrent with the Convid hoax, and then eventually the arms spear agenda, which is what it was always designed to lead to, was this alternative narrative that actually there's good stuff going on. And don't be deceived by all the stuff that the normies are being fed by the mainstream news. If you really pay attention, you'll see that there's some really good things happening. And Donald Trump was being held up as a sort of figurehead for this scene, this good guy, And there were many commentators who popped up in 2020 for the first time. Nobody had heard of them before. And many of them grew YouTube channels extremely quickly. I had my YouTube channel in 2008, and by early 2020, I had 9.5k subscribers. That shot up to 63k in the middle of the COVID thing, but I was seeing new names popping up out of nowhere and getting 100 right getting 100,000 subscribers overnight.
Wow. Yeah.
And there was this whole community of commentators who were sort of on script with all this stuff, and they were going on each other's shows and they were sharing information and stuff. And in 2020, cards on the table, I was prepared to give that stuff the time of day.
Yes.
So I never fully invested myself in it. And you won't find a video anywhere of me saying, yes, I accept this is all true. I was prepared to listen to it.
Yeah.
But I had a cutoff point. And my cutoff point was March of 21, the first anniversary of the nonsense. And I said, if there's no verifiable evidence that any of this stuff is going on, and it doesn't just go beyond hearsay and YouTube pundits spouting their opinions, then I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And of course, March 21 came, nothing verifiable happened. So I was like, no, okay, now I'm going to conclude that whole thing has been a psyop.
Yeah.
And it's probably the cruelest psyop ever played on humanity. What could be more cruel than giving good people who only want to live freely, they just want to take care of themselves and their families, they don't want to hurt anyone, they're not interested in dominating or harming anyone, they just want to be free.
Yeah.
Giving those people false hope and making them believe that good things are happening when you actually know that you're enslaving and controlling them even further. What could be more wicked? What could be more evil than that? So that's why I conclude that this is the most evil psyop that's ever been played on humanity. And that's my position on it now. And a lot of water has passed under the bridge since we last spoke in December 2020. I think we're both in a very different place, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I think we view a lot of things very differently to when we last had a conversation.
Yeah, I remember, here to everything you said, and I do feel, I sent you the video, the number 314 video that I made, but I know you don't have time to see these things, but it's interesting. Back around that time in March 2021 even before that, I think it was January, I started saying, you know what, I'm not having any more of this Truth or Circuit people on my show. I'm not going to, I kept getting asked to go on people's shows. I kept declining because I started to see that it was a circuit and they were all speaking in a vacuum. Now, some of them were innocent. Some of them were plants and were shills. I did another video called The 90%. Where I said that 90% of this alternative media has been infiltrated. Now, what does that mean? Or are dark, working for the dark, whatever you want to call it. Now, that might sound very divisive, and a lot of people have called me divisive for saying that, and that I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot by saying that, because, but, if I make a mistake, I'm going to own up to it. If I'm going to say, look, I got pulled into that, right? Here I am, and I got pulled into that. And I know you from the beginning. You were always skeptical. You always said, I'm having these people say these things, and you had the people on that were really singing
I had
the
Charlie
praises.
Freak on, I had Charlie Freak on 4 times in 2020, and they were long shows. They were like 3-hour shows.
Yep.
Charlie was,
they went viral.
Charlie was saying his piece, but I did challenge him at various points and say, but Charlie, what about this? And, this doesn't sit right with me. And he gave his answers to it, but I was skeptical. You're right.
I remember you were always skeptical. You were one of the voices that was always skeptical. And I remember when you interviewed me in December, which is a shame it's not here. I'll probably put it up on BitChute though. You were asking, everybody's saying that we're going to ascend on the 21st of December, 2020. Do you remember you said, I'm going to call on the psychics, like, what do you feel? And I know I gave a very, I haven't watched it recently, but I was trying to give you a very esoteric sort of metaphysical response, because the way I see the world is much more multidimensional, and I can see the good in the bad, right? I can see that. I don't just see it from a 3D level. I know a lot of your audience are very much into the research, into the 3D stuff, into what's going on here on this planet. But the conclusion I came to was step away from the frickin' intel. No one's got intel. No military in any country in the world is ever going to give you intel to know what's happening next. We don't have the inside scoop.
Well, if they are, the first person they're going to call is a dodgy secondhand car dealer from London hanging out in the south of Spain and, share their intel with him, aren't they? It's obvious.
Yeah, the inside scoop, exactly. Exactly. But this is the thing, and this is what I've said to my audience, look, stay away from the intel, because we manifest our reality. But you do have a more pessimistic sort of view on this. Do you truly believe that absolutely all of it was a psyop? And if it is a psyop, then who is the perpetrator? Who are the ones that are perpetrating this psyop on us?
I believe this whole Q white hats idea is a psyop. It's obviously military grade. It's coming out of military intelligence institutions, probably cooked up at Tavistock.
Yeah.
Because most of these psyops are.
I felt
and there'll be complicity with the intel agencies all around the world, the CIA and Mossad and whatever the Australian equivalent
100%.
is everywhere around the world. They'll all be working to the same script. And we've seen that they can do this with COVID, all the countries locked down at exactly the same time. The masks came in at exactly the same time all around the world. So that alone is proof that we have a worldwide control system, which is a hierarchy dictating down to the governments of the world. So everything was done in lockstep, to use that phrase. And I just feel that this whole idea that there are good forces out there that are fighting our battles for us would have been a massive psyop. And that's how it was.
I'm going to give you my point of view. I think that because I sort of, get used to try and tap in and stuff, I think that what the military or whoever this is that is behind this we want to call it deep state, which works hand in hand with military, and they work hand in hand with witches and black magicians. They definitely do. It's always hand in hand. You know this from the music industry. It's not just military mind control. There's also ritualistic type stuff going on, and there's social engineering and the study of humans and how we interact, and the social media pressures, the pressures that we put on each other, and this word, this kind of Chinese whispers that happens, and how we start to, if we repeat something often enough, we believe it as truth, right? But I can feel on an energetic level that there is something in the bigger picture of, let's say, people incarnating at this time here to help us. Now, this isn't savior programming, but rather there may be people who have their souls are more evolved, and they have chosen to reincarnate at this time and step up and be the people that are helping. As far as white hats are concerned, I think I said quite a few times, the white hats are us. I mean, we're the ones doing the helping and the waking up. It's not a
there's no justice
force.
There's just us.
Yeah. I love that. No justice, just us. And so so what do you think do you think that this was just implant an idea in the populace and those who, because you've got a captive audience, right, during lockdowns, and did people just go, that sounds good, I'll go with that, that sounds, sort of appeals to their nature to look for a savior? What do you think happened in the actual truther movement? Because I saw it from the back end, and so did you, that we start to see there were ones that were naturally organic people who just started a channel, started speaking, and then they got pulled onto people's shows, which is what happened to me. We've got people who are veterans like yourself, who've been doing the hard yards, you've been doing the tours, you've been doing the research, you've been doing the books, you've been providing people with information, piecing the puzzle pieces together, and then they know that you're good, right? So then these other sort of shills kind of pull you into.
I'm a magnet. I'm a shill magnet.
Yeah. Well, you give credibility to the thing. And I started to see this MO, right? And as soon as I would spot this MO, really early on, I spotted it. The love bombing, right? The sort of,
it's
you're the
grooming,
next best. Yeah, it's grooming. It's grooming.
It's grooming. I got a lot of that. I was getting emails saying, Mark, you're the only one I can trust in the game. You're the most genuine out there. You're doing such a great job. And it was flattery. Yeah. And they were trying to kill me with flattery.
Yeah, but I never fell for it. I remember really early on, because someone very well known, I won't say who it is, shared my video, and then it went viral. As soon as she shared it, which I believe she's a deep state asset, she shared my video, it went viral. I literally went from nothing, like I just had this, I just did it, I only put the videos up for my friends to watch, and the next thing you know, thousands and thousands, it's just growing. Within a couple of weeks, it just blew up, right? What it took you 10 years to grow, it happened for me in a week, and then it just kept growing. Now they're playing with my numbers.
That's going to make people suspicious of you then, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It's right, absolutely. And then, but because I didn't play the game, they stopped my numbers, and they don't let it grow anymore, and they knock people off and they shadow ban me. So as soon as I stopped playing the game, that's when that happened, right? When I started rejecting big names, now they all did the same thing. They would love bomb me. They would make videos about me without me being there and say, oh, you've got to see this girl. You've got to see her.
I had the same.
Right.
Yeah. I had a video done about me, about how wonderful I am.
Yeah. Go watch them.
Without my involvement. It was just
without my involvement. I had
and that was the love bombing you're talking about.
Yeah, I had posters made. I remember when I started my Facebook group, I had these popular people come in and they'd make these promotional posters. She's JCK going to be on this show. And I'm like, I didn't give you permission to, like, I'm not going on your show. And then people would write to me, you're coming on my show, blah, blah, blah. We've got it all planned. Others would pretend that they didn't know how to contact me. And they would say to their audience, can you please tell her that I want her on the show? So then I'd get bombarded by audience members. So this was the MO, right? Constantly mention the name, build up the audience's, get a buzzword going, and then try and pull you onto the show. And then there's a couple of things that have happened, which I noticed is they would try to speak their little script that they had and get you to agree with what they're saying. And because you're just sitting there like trying to be polite and you're there live doing a video with them, if you're quite new to this, you won't know how to handle yourself. And you'll have to agree to be polite, right? And that's part of it. And then I think what was also happening with a lot of them was there was monetary gains to be made. And so it would stop them from not playing the game. Because if they didn't play the game, they would lose their income of some kind, right?
But you've got people who pump out videos every week, even when they don't particularly have anything to say, because they have to keep the channel going, to keep the ads on the channel, because they rely on it for their income. So they're popping up 3 or 4 times a week and saying nothing in particular for no apparent reason. And that doesn't serve anyone.
And what do you think about, does this have correlations to you, like from what you've studied, Mark, as a and just for those of you who don't already know, Mark Devlin is an industry. So you were a DJ back in the 90s. How long were you working as a DJ for in the music industry?
Well, I've been DJing since 1990, and it was my full-time job for about 20 years. So I did it from 1997 to just before 2017. Full time. And then I sort of the DJing took a back seat and I started doing other jobs, and I was doing a driving job until COVID happened. Then I lost that. But since COVID, I've been able to sustain myself as a full-time researcher and broadcaster and author. That's really taken over. But yeah, I was a club and radio DJ for many years, and I was on the sort of periphery of the music industry. So I wouldn't say I was a part of the machinery. I didn't work directly for any corporations. I worked for a couple of radio stations, and I got to interview artists. So in the 90s, I got to meet quite a few big names on the R&B and hip hop scene. So, you know, I interviewed Busta Rhymes, Lauryn Hill of the Fugees, RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan, Aaliyah, the late Aaliyah, who sadly died in 2001. And also I met Destiny's Child. In early 1998, when they just launched. I sat on a sofa next to Beyonce. She was 16 at the time. She was a very sweet young girl. The industry hadn't got its teeth into her by that point. Look at her now. I believe she's demonically possessed.
100%.
She's mind controlled. She's got Jay-Z as her handler. She's in a terrible place spiritually. And it's so tragic because she was just this sweet young girl.
And so do you think that these things are happening? So no, I hear you talk about the music industry, and because of you and your research and people like you, we now know this, right? And a lot of people say they woke up because of you and because of researchers like the Paul is Dead sort of research that Mike Williams was kind of getting involved with, and Richard Balducci. And we see this happening in the entertainment industry. And what I kept saying to my audience to wake up and stop, putting us as gurus and these YouTube figures who are now these famous people to them and glorifying and idolizing those of us on the YouTube scene. Do you see that these sorts of things like MK Ultra, sort of mind control things, these same sort of engineering practices, do you believe that this is what's happened in this alternative media community? Do you think that that's what's happening?
Yeah, well, now I do. I've learned so much these past 3 years, even after having been in the game for so long. And I made the mistake very early on. When I first got into this sort of truth-seeking game, I started to ask big questions in life around about 2007, 2008. And I started to go public with my findings from 2010 onwards. And in those early days, I made the very fatal mistake of assuming that everyone I was going to meet on my new journey was going to be lovely people, genuine, sincere, on the same page as me, just want truth, want to do no harm, free of ego, done a lot of self-work on themselves, improved themselves as individuals. How wrong was I? I mean, I've met so many shits and charlatans and ego merchants over the past several years, and I've come to realize that the people you meet in this game are prone to exactly the same human fallibilities as what we would call the normies, the regular population.
Absolutely.
There's still so many people that have self-work to do. The ego is dominating the way they operate. They are opinionated. They don't give time to other people and to consider their position. They're offering from a place of selfishness. Not everyone, obviously, but I'm just pointing out that you still meet these people when you're on this journey. And then when it comes to hosts, and broadcasters and authors and researchers and such, I made the same mistake with them. And I thought that anyone operating within this community is going to be trustworthy and is going to be honest and sincere and doing their best to try and help people. That would be their primary motivating factor. They just want to uplift and enlighten humanity and make this world a better place and combat evil and tyranny wherever they see it. And so I never imagined that in the so-called truth game, I would be meeting intel agents, Shills, I've done 234 episodes of my Good Vibrations podcast now. And when I look back occasionally over the list of guests that I've had on over the course of the past 12 years, I can now see that many of them will have been Shills, plants, Disinfo agents.
Wow.
There's some that I'm not sure about, but there's some where I see the name and I think, oh, I wouldn't go anywhere near them now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I had them on. But obviously at the time, I believe they were genuine. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had them on the show.
Exactly.
But it's very clear to me that many of them were. And also, I do a lot of conferences. I do a lot of events. Pretty much every weekend now, I'm speaking at some conference or some meetup group. And I know that over the many years I've been doing that, I would have been rubbing shoulders with, again, many Shills. And people write to me every single day and they say, don't trust this person. You shouldn't have done a show with him. It makes you look suspicious to hang out with this guy or this woman. And it's an absolute minefield. It's a quagmire. You can't do the amount of shows that I do. You can't pop up at the amount of conferences and do talks to the extent that I do without rubbing shoulders with agents, because we've got in Britain what's known as the 77th Brigade of the British Army. And this is an arm of the military which is specifically charged with infiltrating groups, going on chat threads, going on YouTube videos and commenting in the section there, going onto Facebook chats and other kinds of threads. And their job is to sow dissent and confusion and start arguments and get people going back and forward. And I see some of these threads.
I can see that.
And they go on for days.
Yeah.
Somebody will make a post out of a place of sincerity.
Yeah.
They just want to help people. And then somebody will pop up in the comment section. Oh, I disagree with that. And you're wrong about this. And this is the case. Yep. Then somebody else will say, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. And then somebody else will say, you're both wrong. It's this. And then the argument would just go on for days and days and days and days and days. Imagine how much time is being wasted. People are being tied up on pointless, stupid online arguments that are going nowhere and achieving nothing. And all that time and energy and passion could be getting put into things that really matter.
Exactly.
Actual activism that actually changes things. I see the same with sports games, specifically football. You know, I've been in pubs where they've got the bloody football on. I've got no interest in it myself. But England will be playing maybe, and they'll score a goal. And the energy levels that go up in that pub, absolute roars from the crowd. And even during the game, you know, you'll hear people saying, get the bloody ball, get the ball. Like it hasn't occurred to the footballer that his job is to get the ball. And they need to tell him. But just imagine all that passion has been channeled into a stupid sports game instead of where it really needs to go. So, yes, I've learned a lot of lessons. And I would now say that more commentators, more broadcasters, more so-called researchers in the so-called truth scene are either shills or they're people that are doing it just for the money or their heart isn't really in it, more so than there are genuine ones. That's a pretty tragic place to be.
What about the ones?
I think we're outweighed by the ones that are in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, well, that's where I came up with that 90%. Well, that actually came through in a hypnosis session I had this deep hypnosis with Gordon Smith, and my higher self said 90% of the truther movement was infiltrated, and I, as a conscious person when I woke up. I was like, what did I say? But then when I spoke to a few people, they were like, yeah, actually that would make sense. That sounds about right, because you have the actual plants there that are actually CIA trained. And people always say to me, name the names. I can't name the names for you, okay? Because that's not my job. It's your journey, because even the dark ones got me here, right? So even the ones that are the shills got me to
And
this
if you did
place.
name names, you would just get yourself into an absolute quagmire of correspondence. Oh, you were wrong about him. You shouldn't have said this. No, he said this. You know, your email box would just explode.
Oh, look,
and,
I had
it would take everything over.
this number 314 video I did caused such a stir, and I had in the comment section people saying, how dare you say this about this person? I'm like, I actually didn't mention that person's name at all, but you're the one who came to that conclusion. So I had a lot of that. I didn't even describe anyone in particular, okay? But there was also in the comment section a lot of truthers with big channels commenting, saying, thank you for saying this. Thank you for coming forward and saying this blatantly. Because I was telling people to wake up and what the hell are you doing, like following these people? But it wasn't an anger towards the audience. I was just so upset about the deception and what had actually, what's controlling these dark people as well is we're being fed this bullshit on a silver platter, and nobody's questioning it. Everybody's sort of just allowing this this sort of network to happen, and it's not cool, because people form friendships and bonds, and they belong to groups that they're part of these people. These people generate a lot of love, and I can spot them a mile away now, and it's really it's almost like people are under a spell most of the time. And there are those that can smell it and they see it and they can feel the genuine ones. And there's those who can see and those who can't see it. And the ones who can't see it are very deeply entrenched in, I believe, wanting someone to come and save them.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
I
it's
know
the savior complex. That's how religions work. They'll give you
coined the term "no heroes." I mean, and that comes from
exactly.
music
a lot of my work
well.
into the music industry and the entertainment industry generally has been espousing this mantra of no more heroes.
Yeah.
And that's been a consistent message for many years from me now, because I've presented so many examples through my books and through my talks of musical icons who've been placed up there on a pedestal and served up to us as these figures that we should look up to. And people have fallen for it. And we all do. I had musical heroes. I had DJ heroes, actually. I had guys I looked up to that I aspired to be like when I was coming up in the DJ game. And I meet people all the time who've been fans of this rock group or this singer or whatever, and they just do not want to hear it, that there could be anything about this guy or this band that is nefarious and that they could be running agendas and psyops and stuff. They don't want to hear it, because people love their heroes, and we all get burnt that way. And of course, if they're going to serve up heroes in the music game and in Hollywood movies and in sports, then they're also going to serve up heroes in the so-called truth alternative scene. It stands to reason.
Absolutely.
If we've got military grade psychological manipulation going on in entertainment and popular culture, they are going to be not only capable of doing that in the so-called truth game, but it's going to be absolutely a key strategy to implant their agents into this scene. And going back to what I was saying earlier about how this Q white hat psyop, which is what I believe it to be, is the cruelest hoax ever perpetrated on humanity. Just think about these agents that they implant into this scene and what their full-time job is. Their full-time job is to mislead genuine people who want to help others and make this world a better place. Now, where does that put them spiritually, karmically? Can you imagine the karma that they're building up for themselves based on their behaviors and actions? Just imagine taking a paycheck for deliberately deceiving well-meaning people. That's got to be one of the worst places you can be in spiritually. So there is going to be a price to pay for those that have been knowingly duping all these people. I do want to address one thing, which is an aspect of this narrative that we were getting in 2020 was that various famous people have been taken off and executed.
I was going to ask you that
incarcerated.
next. Yep.
Okay. So we were told that we're looking at doubles in their place. Now, there is actually some evidence for this. So we're told that the real Bill and Melinda Gates have gone. And there seems to be some evidence for that. There's this big joke on the scene about Melinda really being a dude.
The guy. Yeah, they're really
Linda,
into that, aren't they? The whole
played by Kevin Kline or Robin Williams in drag. And certainly Man Linda looks very different to old photographs of Melinda Gates. And Bill himself, there's a few anomalies there. Now, Joe Biden, I don't accept that what we've got served up to us as Joe Biden is the original Joe Biden. Because if you go back and look at photographs of Joe Biden from the Obama era and prior to that, he looks very different.
That's right.
And also we've had some videos showing that Biden seems to be a CGI sort of construct where his arm disappeared in front of a mic, you know, that footage. And there's a picture of him sitting in the White House office, supposedly with a car lot in the background, which isn't there, should be a lawn. So that's all very strange. And then we've got celebrities, and a great example is Madonna.
Yeah.
So I've done a whole presentation on this. I did a talk called The Dark Occult Aspects of Madonna in Newcastle just recently. And I presented some video evidence of what is being presented to us as Madonna. And to me, it doesn't look like the original Madonna. Actually, there's two of them. There's another one that they're saying is Madonna who looks much younger. She looks no more than 30. And Madonna's supposed to be 64. And yes, I know plastic surgery exists. I know there's all kinds of cosmetic stuff that can be done. But I can't accept that that's the original Madonna. And that raises the question, well, where is she then? So lots of unanswered questions. Vladimir Putin, a lot of people think he's changed in appearance and he doesn't look like the same guy.
That was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Tom Hanks was supposed to be the devil incarnate, according to many commentators. You know, he was supposed to be one of the very worst celebrities in terms of the horrific stuff he was into. And Charlie Freak in 2020 was saying, oh, Tom Hanks is the devil and all this kind of stuff. Just recently, I see Charlie's put out a video saying that Tom Hanks is a godly man. He's one of the best. He's trying to help humanity.
Oh, God.
And it was necessary for him to take on this persona of being a really nasty, bad guy. And he had to just accept being presented that way as part of his deep cover so that he could really be doing all his good work. So this is the kind of mindfuckery that we've had to contend with and try and make sense of
now,
these past 3 years.
Can I put something in from my perspective? Because I definitely... I'm questioning a lot of stuff, and I got really sick in December. I don't think I had the C word, but I got really, really sick to the point where I actually thought, am I ever going to get better? But during that time, because it's kind of like a detox kind of flush thing, I was questioning everything. I couldn't do anything. Like I had to just lay in bed and do nothing. And in that time, I questioned everything, and I started to question what was the messages I was getting. What was I seeing? Is this a psy-op on me? Were there thoughts implanted in my head? Was there archons working through me? Was there other things giving me these things? Because I did do remote views on certain things. I hate that word remote view. It's basically just a journey that psychics do. And I did see some people in Gitmo. Okay. There were certain actors that I did see in these visions that I got.
Is that what you would call an out-of-body experience?
It's kind of like a journey, like an astral journey. Okay, but it's you're jumping to a a future, because time doesn't exist, you're sort of seeing something where you can't tell when this is occurring, what time space it is. Is it in a parallel universe to ours? We don't know with all of what reality is and what scientists are telling us about quantum realities and different parallel universes all stacked on top of each other. What version are we seeing, right? This is where I'm going with it on a esoteric sort of metaphysical level. When we look at things multidimensionally, that even in the psyop, there is good, because what I suspect is I think the psyop is, the deep state is, they knew there was something coming. For example, this natural sort of evolution and ascension of the human beings that are on this planet, the organic human beings. They knew it was coming, and so they commandeered that sort of that focus of the collective, and wanted to twist it in such a way so that we could become placid. And because, let's face it, the people that got caught up with the whole Q stuff were the people that would have rioted and caused a big revolution.
Well, a lot of them were American patriots with cabinets full of guns.
Yeah.
So you would have thought that at a time where America was plunged into governmental tyranny to the extent that had never happened before in human history, American patriots, usually with beards and baseball caps, would have been out there on the streets loaded with rifles and ammo.
So they had to placate
ready
masses.
to go to war.
Yeah.
And it seems a lot of them were placated into keeping the guns locked up in the cabinet. Because and sitting back and saying, it's okay, the military's got this, we don't need to do anything. So from that point of view, I guess you could conclude that it was a genius psyop if it did manage to put down that potential sort of revolution.
So what do you think, who is behind this? I know you said there was the military, but okay. The thing that really gets me is, because part of this whole psyop thing, because some people say, well, I never followed Q, but it all got mixed in with the other stuff, because I never followed Q, and yet I found myself being pulled into this whole psyop that got messed in with all the other sort of new age stuff, alternative research, and all these other things. Even the term "watch the water," which was sort of a thing kind of Q put out, it started to become part of the vernacular of everybody. So, but the biggest thing that I find very cruel is this idea of your heroes being shown as evil. That in itself, is it true? Do you think it is true that some of these actors were actually really, really evil, and that they were pedophiles and all these things that the accusations? I mean, when you think about it, the worst thing you could call, and they would know this through Tavistock, the worst thing you could call anyone in a group of people in a community is a pedophile, is one of the worst, and a cannibal. Okay, so pedophile and cannibal. So is that true? Because the evidence certainly appeared to be very true, not necessarily about the specific people, but about how the world is run. But, that notion of these very popular actors that we all loved and things like that being these worst of the worst kind of criminals. What do you say?
No, my research has borne out that all that stuff is actually true, unfortunately.
Right.
This does go on in Hollywood. Right. It does go on in the music industry. Pedophilia is everywhere. Child sex trafficking is everywhere. Probably adrenochrome harvesting is everywhere. Right. All that stuff would appear to be real. I don't think any of that is a psyop. Elements of it got mixed up in that whole Q narrative to help give it credibility. But I've been researching the music industry for over 15 years now, the true nature of it. And unfortunately, that stuff does go on. Many, many A-list artists will be into it. If they're not directly involved in that kind of activity, then they sort of flirt with the imagery and put it out through their work. And I've provided endless examples of this in my books. And it'll be the same in Hollywood. You know, there's researchers into the Hollywood film industry who could name many A-list actors and producers and directors, and they're into the same kind of stuff. So, yes, unfortunately, that is all very real. And, you know, I was on the path of researching and exposing all this stuff all the way up to March 2020. And then when all the COVID nonsense kicked off, I kind of got a bit derailed from my music industry research because I felt a very urgent need to start addressing what was going on in the world. By that point, I'd had quite a sizable audience that was looking at my work, but I gained a whole new audience in 2020 just through straight real talk. There was this video that I did in my car. It's my famous car rant of April 2020, where I just locked myself in the car and just exploded with righteous anger. That turned so many people onto my work. It got me so much attention. People still reference that video to this day. And so it's great that I've been able to influence larger numbers of people as a result of what's happened in the world. But yeah, never expected any of this stuff to be happening. We're still left with these questions, JC, you see, you know, about Madonna, what's happened to her? Because I truly believe that's not the original Madonna. And all these other people, what's happened to them? So, you know, those who espouse the sort of Q plan will say, well, you see, that's proof. That's proof that the real ones have gone because they were so evil, they've been got rid of, and they put doubles in place. But it doesn't make any sense because this is still deception, right? Isn't that supposed to be what those of us who want to destroy evil and darkness and put down this cabal control system that we've got, isn't that what we want to end? We want to end lies, deception, mind control. So why would you employ methods of doing that involve more lies, deception, and mind control? We're all being duped, we're all being mugged off, and we don't deserve it. We deserve truth. We have a right towards truth and freedom. And I don't see any benevolence in claiming that you're trying to bring that about through still deceiving people massively. We hear that the masses aren't ready for the truth. They couldn't handle it. They go crazy. Well, too bad. They're going to have to go through it because the likes of us have had to go through our dark night of the soul. We've been to some very dark places. We've had to face some very uncomfortable truths, and we're still doing that now. And if we've had to do that, sorry, but everyone else is going to have to go through it as well. They're going to have to encounter that shock, that trauma, and realize that the world is nothing like we thought it was. That's the only way anything's going to change, for everyone to come to this realization, for these facts to be revealed. So never mind that people might find it difficult to handle, they're just going to have to deal with it. So I've said all along, nothing short of coming out with the blatant, cold, hard truth about what's been going on in this realm, who's really running things, all the horrific practices that take place, being broadcast to the entire world is the only thing that's really going to nip this in the bud. So we've heard through this Q narrative thing that's been running for quite a few years now, the idea of this emergency broadcast system. And we've had various commentators saying, it's next Tuesday, guys. Just got off the phone from Q and he says it's happening next Tuesday at 2:00. And it never does.
No.
So why, in God's name, if there really is a benevolent group that's trying to help humanity, have they not put out this frigging emergency broadcast system? That's what's needed. It needs to cut in over every TV program, every radio broadcast all over the world at the same time and broadcast the truth. Nothing else is going to do it. It hasn't happened because it's never going to happen, because there's no validity to it. Sorry, real talk.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got to do the hard yards, and I think that's what this is about. And I think that, you know, all of us have been duped. I want to apologize publicly to anyone if in the early days I did any of these videos that said anything false or got pulled in and got asked questions. For example, I did get asked questions over and over again. When is EBS? Can you please tap in? Can you find out? And I tried to give the answers that I thought.
We got burned. Everyone got burned.
So burned. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not trying to retract anything. If anyone has been following me and actually watching my videos, you could see the evolution of where I was going with my thoughts. I'm not just the first few videos that I did.
Exactly.
I'm a person evolving out loud as
we're on a
Kyle
journey.
C
Those of us that are
says.
genuine are
Yeah.
on a journey, and you can see that in our videos. You can watch our videos of the past 3 years and you can trace that development as we ourselves are going through our own learning journey.
Whereas the other ones are
while we're
like a
helping the
cardboard
audience
cutout, aren't
to go
they?
through theirs.
The ones that are the shills are like a cardboard cutout and they don't change.
They have
that.
the same message set in concrete, and it never ever deviates one iota.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see growth, you don't see development, you don't see them taking new evidence as it comes along and reevaluating their viewpoint. It's set in concrete and nothing's ever going to change it. They're the ones to be suspicious of, I would say.
And they don't show their real self. Like they might do a car video, but honestly, like, do they show? One of them invited me on their show, really big name. I'd never watched their show. I'm not even going to reveal male or female, okay? I've never watched their show, but they were really growing exponentially, okay? And when he or she started doing the love bombing, I was like, okay, what's going on here? I watched a video that they made about me. They made 5 videos about me, okay? And kept going on about how amazing I am and this and that. And at first I was like, oh, that's lovely. And then I went, because my number one rule was if anyone throws themselves at you, that's a red flag. Anyone throws themselves at you right at the beginning on you. If anyone throws themselves at you, it's a red flag. And I watched this person and they were saying the right words, but behind that persona was nothing. There was dead. It was like a dead vessel. And I couldn't see any life, or like as an intuitive, I can sort of sense a heart energy or some kind of spark in them. There was no spark in them. And I thought to myself, this is really bad. And then when I caught this person lying, and because their office and someone associated with them had already emailed me, and this person was CC'd in the email saying, we would like you to come on our show. They then made a video declaring to the audience, I don't know how to get in contact with her. Can you all please reach out to her? And I'm
right, because you're so difficult to email, aren't you?
You're lying.
It's so difficult to find your address.
So I got bombarded with, and it was like a chant. It was like all these comments. It was like a spell. People were all saying the same thing, like a chant. And I started thinking, what is this? What is this crazy, insane thing? And this happened a lot. And then I started joining like a detective, right? I started joining. It was like I had a cork board up, and I could figure out the network of how this person's connected to this one, and this one has this one on this show, and this one, and it was all connected, all of them, down to 2 people went to the same freaking school, same college, the same university. There's people that were trained. There was some that I could work out were handlers of this one or pimps of this one, and this one was pushing this one, and I could work out who the handlers were. It all started to become very obvious that this was a deep state operation, a job. And as soon as I started speaking out about it, my numbers started getting, it'll go up 100, it'll get knocked down 200, it'll go up 100, it'll get knocked down. And I don't monetize my channel. There is no ads on my channel. Okay. So they're hiding me. They're hiding my name. They've wiped me off Google. You try and look me up. It's not there. They're doing all sorts of things. Okay. So, yes, it shows a big number, but there's, that's the loyal people are watching, and the rest of them are nowhere to be seen. So I don't really, I went off on a little tangent there, but what I was trying to say is that when we look at the cardboard cutout ones, we can sort of start to see and detect, rather than just going, oh, I love their information, or I love hearing what they say. They make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Let's look at the real person behind it. Are they being organic? Are they, you know, what do you think about, you know, you want to say something else before I go on to the next thing?
Well, I was just going to offer an anecdote. You were saying there about people who say all the right words, but when you look at their emotional displays, there's nothing there. They just don't seem genuine. And it just reminded me of a story concerning Jazz Coleman, who's the front man of the group Killing Joke.
Yeah.
And there was a video I came across a while back where he's talking about Bono. And he's saying all the right things about Bono. He's saying he's a slave to the New World Order, and you know, he's not what you think he is, and he's running all these errands for these globalists and stuff like that. And on the surface, he's saying all the right stuff, and you think, yes, Jazz, that's right, go, yeah, Bono is a piece of shit, isn't he? But when you look at how he's delivering the message, he's slouched on a sofa. There's no energy behind it. There's no passion. There's nothing burning in his eyes while he says it. And I think it was just a script that he was charged with delivering, because I don't trust that guy. I've done some analysis of Killing Joke. They're another group that people will say, oh, they put out some great empowering messages. Well, they appear to in their songs, but you'll also find a lot of dark occult satanic imagery in their artwork and stuff. And I do not trust Jazz Coleman at all. I mean, so the message was correct, but there was no passion there. And you can detect that. You can detect when there's passion. You know, people who are genuine get fired up from time to time. They go off on a rant. You can't avoid it because because the passion takes you over, right? Yeah. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you really believe in something, if your heart and soul is in it, it's going to come through. It's going to be animated.
I've had a few of those rants, and then I go, I'm so sorry, everybody. Quite a few of those rants, and people
we need to
love it. You know,
the genuine ones are the ones who rant.
Yeah.
But, you know, another thing to be suspicious of is these pop-up truthers that we've had, and we still do. There's new names coming on board in 2023 that have very professional setups. So they look like
what's that about? I've still got the shitty dodgy.
Well, look at this. I mean, I've just got a bloody curtain and a friggin' window behind me. But you get these broadcasters, and they've got what looks like the mainstream evening news studio behind them with great graphics and a lovely, expensive microphone and a nice desk.
By the way, do you have a PA by any chance, Mark Devlin? Do you have a PA?
Oh God, no.
I don't either. I don't either. I have no PA.
I could use one, but no, definitely not. Yep. So you got all these people that are popping up, and you think, well, where did the funds come from to buy that mic then? Because, you know, these mics cost hundreds of pounds, the professional ones. I'm just using a DJ mic here.
Is this classed as a professional mic? I don't even know how to use it, by the way. I just bought it because I had enough of my shitty mics.
Well, it sounds good. But, you know, I just question where all these people come from, and where have they been all these years? Why have they not spoken out before, you know? So we've learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
But like I was saying earlier in this show, we're still here.
Yeah.
You know, March 2020 came along, and it felt like our whole world had just fallen from underneath us. We didn't know what the hell was going on or what the future held for us. So we're almost on that 3-year anniversary. And the first bit of good news is we're still here. And then the second bit of good news, when you really look at it, is if you imagine the hardships that we've all been through, we've all suffered, we've all been through trauma and stress, and yet one way or another, we've overcome that. You know, I'm like anyone. I have good days, I have bad days. And when I'm having a bad day, sometimes it's really bad.
Yeah.
And I wonder how or if I'm even going to come through the other side. But I always have. And that shows that you can overcome these challenges. And if we've done it for the last 3 years, we're strong enough to be able to continue doing that. Reminds me of a lyric from Gangstar, Moment of Truth, which is one of my favorite hip hop records from the late, great Guru, where he said, but wait, I've been through a whole load of other shit before, so I ought to be able to withstand some more. So, that's something we have to keep in mind. Just the fact
Yeah.
that that's how you know the real ones. The real ones are the ones that were there at the start,
Yeah.
and they're still here now.
Yeah.
They haven't gone flaky. They haven't fizzled out. They haven't disappeared.
Mm.
We're still here now.
Yeah.
And we've evolved. And the things that we've spoken about have evolved as times have changed and as new information has come along.
And we do it because we're helping people, right? I mean, that's the driving
that's what we want
force
to do,
for
isn't
me. It's like, I was ready to pack it up when I felt sick, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting burnt out. And all I kept thinking about is, but I just want to help people, and there's so much more people.
I mean, what else would we do now?
Yeah.
What else could we do with our lives?
True.
I mean, you can't jack it all in.
No.
At this point, you can't say, I'm done with this truth lark. I'm done with helping people. I'm just going to become a normie and watch TV and drink beer and watch football. We can't do that.
We can't do it. And so
never going to happen.
I can keep talking to you, and I do want to keep talking to you. Before I go on to it, because Mark is doing a tour of Australia again, which I'm so happy about. Can I come? I want to come and see you in Sydney. Have you got a venue yet in Sydney?
3.5 years late.
I know. Oh yeah, it's end of the year, isn't it? November? Is it November 2023? Yeah. I've got your thing here, so let me try and do a share screen. If you've got anything to share, I'll do it. But I've got one here. If I can.
Yeah, I don't have a share screen.
Find.
But basically, this tour that I tried to do in March 2020, I'm now going to be doing it in November of this year.
November of this year. Now I have. I'm going to donate to you. Just to let you know, you've got a crowdfunder thing because
you don't have to.
I want to. I want
just
to
come along to the gig.
Yeah, I will definitely. And you got to. I'll come up.
So what's happening is I was going to be coming in March 2020, and back then it was going to be 3 gigs. I only had time to do Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I was going to go to Perth, but not Melbourne. But on this occasion, I'm programming in 4 gigs.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be hitting Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth.
Mm-hmm.
It kicks off on, let me try and get the date right. It's going to be the last gig. I remember because it's bonfire night, 5th of November is in Perth on the Sunday. Yeah. So Sunday, the 5th of November is Perth. So working backwards, Saturday, the 4th of November is going to be Sydney.
Wow. You're really,
Club Burwood.
That's a big week for you. Just letting you know.
Oh, well, check it out. I'm going to be flying in from London to Australia, doing 4 gigs and then back in London within a week.
Whew. Now
that's how short I have to keep the trip.
Wow. I was in England for 3 weeks last year, August to September. No jet lag on the way there, but coming back, holy crap. That had me on my ass, So I'm just hoping and praying for you that you can take lots of vitamin C.
Well, I've been to Australia. I've been to Australia 6 times before on DJ visits. So I know all about those long haul flights. Yeah. And I've always stopped over in Singapore or Kuala Lumpur, somewhere like that on the way. But on this occasion, I can't be away from home. It's a miracle I can get a week actually to get away because of
I was
home life
very
commitments
lucky
and stuff.
Yes.
But what I'm going to have to do is fly directly from London to Perth on that Qantas direct flight, like 17 hours. Now, that is very punishing on the body.
It is.
To sit on a plane for 18 hours. And I just can't do that in economy because I would arrive destroyed. And I've got to do 4 gigs when I get there. So my only way of getting any kind of rest is to fly premium economy.
Yeah.
So I'm just being completely honest here.
Yeah.
And that is going to cost, last time I checked, it's going to cost somewhere around 4,500 quid. So now I need to raise the funds to get my ass to Perth. And then once I'm there, I'll cover all the internal flights flying between the cities. But the biggest cost is that 4.5 grand to get to Perth.
Wow.
And I'm asking if people who have found value in my work and would like to support me in getting to Australia so that I can present my information. If they're able to chip in a small amount to help me raise what I need for that airfare, it would be greatly appreciated. So I've got a crowdfunder. I never like doing these. I hate asking people
I
for money.
know.
But the only way I'm going to get there is if I can raise this, because I can't afford it, out
Well,
of my
Mark,
own
don't you
pocket.
have a private plane like some of these truthers?
Well, yeah, with my MI6 salary, you would think so, wouldn't you?
I shouldn't
But that's
say
the
that,
crowdfunder. So
everybody.
I've got the
Yeah.
I've got the crowdfunder link, and if you'd be kind enough to post that in the show notes,
Yes, I
if
will.
people are able to
Just
chip
trying to
in
see if
and
there's. You've got
come
a
to one of the
lot of
gigs.
things.
So
This is fantastic.
I know I'm busy as
I
hell.
wish I could come back to
So the
England, but
first gig, so
yeah.
the first gig is going to be on the Wednesday, and that
Mm-hmm.
is going to be in Melbourne.
Fantastic.
Then the second gig is going to be the
You'll love
following
Melbourne.
day, which is the Thursday. That's going to be in Brisbane, put together by my good friend Amanda McLeod.
Yes, I
Big
know,
shout to
Amanda.
her.
Yeah.
Yep. Then Friday, day off, believe it or not. I may hire a car and go and check out the Gold Coast for a few hours.
Okay.
Then Saturday, I'm flying to Sydney.
Okay.
Sunday, I'm doing my gig in Perth. And then
Okay.
straight after that, I fly home. So
That's
that's
a
it. Sydney,
big.
Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know how you're going to do all of that. I'm just thinking about the distance and all of that. But take
Well,
lots of Barocca, lots
it's
of
possible.
vitamin.
I mean, I did that when I was doing DJ
Yeah.
trips. I was doing the same thing. I was doing a gig in Melbourne, jumping
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
flight, doing a gig in Sydney the next night. So, I mean, I
Yes,
was a
but
lot younger then,
you,
but I
you
think I
know.
can. I
How
think
old
I
are
can
you? You're
still
in your
handle it.
40s or like
I'm 52 now.
Oh, you're 52. You're a little bit older than me. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but this is fantastic. So yes, I know it costs about, so that's about 9,000 Australian. Okay. 9,000 Australian dollars.
Right.
But guys, if you believe in Mark's work, please do, all the links will be below, but I don't want to end the conversation on that because I want to ask you about, a very controversial thing, which I saw you talking about with Mike Williams, and that was about some recent, I guess, afterlife information that someone very
Oh, the Soul
popular,
Trap.
the Soul Trap. So this is about David Icke. Now, I don't want to speak badly about anyone. David Icke, I think, woke us, a lot of us, up in the 90s and provided a lot of information. What's your take on him? All his information.
Well, yeah, you're right in that he did wake me up. It was my dad who got me onto his books years ago. And initially, I took the same view of David Icke as most people in Britain did. And I thought that he was a nutter.
Yeah.
I thought the poor man has had some sort of mental breakdown and he's lost his mind. But I read the books because my dad said, just give him a chance. So I thought, okay, I'll just see what he's got to say. And I found that they made a lot of sense and they answered so many questions that I'd had up to that point.
Yeah.
And I devoured David Icke's work in the early days. So he was the only researcher I looked at in those early days, watched all his lectures, went to some of his live shows. And then after 2 or 3 years, I realized it wasn't healthy to only look at one researcher and that there were many, many others out there whose work I should take a look at. So I did that. I discovered the work of Mark Passio. I discovered the work of Jan Irvin and Joe Atwill, who were doing some great work at the time on social engineering and culture creation. Got onto Crow 777, got onto
Crow.
Mike Williams.
Yep.
In terms of David Icke, my perceptions of him have sort of shifted from time to time. I always bear in mind the fact that I might not be doing this if his work hadn't woken me up in the first place.
Exactly.
And I get correspondence daily, literally every single day, from people saying, thank you for your work, Mark. It's made me see the world in a different light. It's changed everything for me and it's put me on the path to truth. That's a very gratifying thing to receive that amount of correspondence. And if Icke hadn't put me on my path, all those people might not have got on the path that they're on through looking at my work.
Same with me.
So, A lot of people claim that David is some sort of disinfo agent. If he is, I wonder what the value would have been to the control system through the millions of people that his work has clearly woken up.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't agree with 100% of what he's had to say.
Yeah.
I don't agree with 100% of what any researcher out there has to say. I might be up to 95%. But there are a few things of his which I don't resonate with.
So let's talk about this. Talk about
okay, well, I'll get on to the soul trap. But
soul trap.
There's his idea of the moon and what the moon is. You know, he says it's this artificial construct. And I see the moon as, well, exactly as it appears. It's a disk of light in the night sky. It's a luminary. I don't believe it's a lump of rock that you can land a rocket on. So that's one thing. And just recently, he's put out this book called The Trap. Now, I've not read this book, but I know the general gist of it because people that have read it have filled me in on it. And I am familiar with the overall idea, which is this idea that when we pass over, when we leave these bodies, there is a massive monumental trick awaiting us, put into place by demonic entities of some sort. And, you know, experiences of NDEs, near-death experiences, people that have effectively died and then come back into their bodies, have always spoken about this tunnel of bright white light that they're enticed to walk along. And many of them talk about seeing visions of loved ones who've passed over, who seem to be beckoning them. And it's very comforting, and it makes them feel very safe. But just recently, in the so-called truth community, we've had this idea, which has been gaining momentum, that that process is some sort of trap which has been devised for us. And what actually happens when we go towards the light is that these entities somehow manage to harness our life energy, and they use it to spit us back out through reincarnation as an ongoing energy source, so that they can continue to feed off of our energetic state. Now, this is a horrifying thought, because we spend our entire lives being tricked and deceived, and it's psyop after psyop after psyop. And I think some people have drawn comfort from the idea that at least one day we will be free of all of that. When we leave our bodies, go back to the spirit world from which we came, at last we can go home to where we really belong. So to then hear that the psyops continue even after you die is like the worst news ever. And it strikes me as the ultimate way of putting fear and hopelessness into the minds of so many people, to make you believe that even when you pass over from this realm, you're still going to be tricked and deceived, and you're going to be spat back out, and it's just going to happen on this.
So what do you think? What do you think is
it.
This is what the in Sanskrit is called samsara, okay, and the freeing from that samsara wheel, that sort of cycle of reincarnation, or this soul trap type thing, is moksha. Okay, so I understand about that. And there was this sort of floated around by a lot of people. I think that a lot of people are getting this information also, and I don't know if David Icke got his information from this. There are a lot of people playing with ayahuasca, and they're seeing these things. But the problem with the ayahuasca realm is that we know from people who remove entities from people that a lot of people are getting false information from those ayahuasca trips, because there's entities feeding off them. Okay, so they're getting false information. And we know David Icke spoke about the archons and sort of introduced that notion from the Gnostics about the archons and how the archons are tricksters, and how, so I think he's possibly, not having read his book, carrying on that notion of that if there's archons on earth, there's got to be archons in the afterlife tricking us and pretending to be angels and whatever, and and then showing us this false light. And if you go to the false light when you die, I mean, what else do you have to worry about? How do you know which one to go to? You go to the false light, you get trapped and put back into the reincarnation cycle. Now, I'm of the belief that, and I've done some videos on this where I've done sort of like channel, I don't know how to explain. I go into an altered state live. I'm on the video, recording this as my friend is facilitating it. And I'm saying that we've got to look outside, like the bigger picture of all of this, because you're not just in this realm. There is a bigger part of you, which is your soul, and it's never going to agree to anything where it stays trapped, because that's eternal. There's no way that it can agree. Anything that it participates in on earth, anything, any sort of thing is something that we have agreed to on a soul level for our own continuation and our own growth.
Yeah.
And do you agree to that? I mean, what do you think is the purpose of that kind of fear porn to say to people that, guess what, guys? Surprise. You're fucked anyway. Yeah. Whichever way you go.
I think the controllers are coming up with ever more complex and cruel psyops. So the whole Q plan thing was cruel, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
And it seems to have been a reboot of this operation from Soviet Russia in 1917 during the time of the Russian Revolution. To introduce communism into Russia. There was this exercise known as Operation Trust.
Yes.
And it fed the Russian populace the idea that there was this military sort of, group
Savior,
that was going to try and bring down the government or the control system, whatever. So the Q thing seems to have been a reboot of that 100 years later. So that's bad enough. But then you get this idea that even when you die, you're not free. And you're going to get tricked and you're going to get spat out here. And I think that is an even crueler psyop that's been devised. That's not to say that everyone espousing it is knowingly putting out disinfo, because a few of my friends buy into this, and I think they really believe it. They're not trying to mislead people. They think that's what really happens. I don't. I've just had a really great conversation with Mike Williams, which I put out as a two-parter. And I put it out in two parts because the information is so heavy in a good way that I thought it would blow people's minds to have all 2 hours of it all at once. Mark, so I split it into two parts.
We talk about the stuff that you and Mike Williams spoke about on those two-parters. We talk about this stuff on my channel all the time. So my audience is right up with all of these sorts of things, I
want to do some more shows of that nature, actually.
Yeah.
I think I would like to take good vibrations in that direction.
Great.
And have some more really higher-minded conversations, because
Mike was
I've spent a long time talking about all the physical 3D bullshit, all the New World Order fucking plans and all this stuff, and it's dense and it's horrible.
It is.
And I'm tired of talking about it. And I think I would quite like to move the conversations towards some higher minded stuff. But I've had a lot of feedback to that conversation with Mike Williams.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have objected to what Mike had to say, specifically when it comes to reincarnation.
Wow.
I think a lot of people don't want to accept that it's real because they're going through such hardship in their lives right now. And of course, I sympathize. And they think that, the last thing they want to hear is some guy saying you're going to have to come back and do it all over again until you learn your lessons. Yeah. I do think everything is by consent. So when we look at what the control system do to us here in this realm, they do things like predictive programming, revelation of the method, placing the truth in plain sight, because they're trying to trick us into giving our consent to what they do. So everything is by consent. They try and get us to contract. When you pay taxes and when you buy a house, they trick you into contracting with them. Yeah. So that as they see it, you're consenting to what's going on. You've agreed to it. Now, I think that happens on a soul level. And I think Mike is right in that none of us come here forcibly.
No.
A phrase that David Icke has used is there's not some god with a machine gun saying get into that body and incarnate or else. So I think we do consent to come here. Now, another problem that people have with that idea, and I know this from the correspondence that I got from the show with Mike, is people will say, look at the suffering there is in the world. Think about somebody like a child who's being sexually abused and passed around.
I hear these
traffic.
questions.
People say, why would anyone agree to that? Why would anyone want to experience that? And I grapple with that one as well.
I know.
But I don't believe that we're forced into these lives, into these bodies. I do believe that it happens consensually, but I can't get my head around why someone would choose a life so full of suffering and hardship and sorrow and death. So
I get that. Yeah, well, I get those really curly questions all the time. I get comments all the time saying, I just don't want to come back here. Why would I want to be in this place? This is the last time I come and reincarnate in this place again. Why would the suffering?
Trust me.
Oh, and and also the pain that people have with, when this whole thing happened with the fall of the Cambell documentaries and all of this started, people started to try and wake up to all of this. The worst thing that broke a lot of my audience's hearts was about the children. Now, we already know that human trafficking has been since time immemorial. Human trafficking has been around. It's a source of, it's part of the economy. Okay, it's a hidden kind of economy that's going on in the world with banksters and stuff like that. But the suffering of children, and people got really pulled into the suffering. But the reality is that we are multidimensional. We are not just this flesh and blood. And having to look at only the suffering diminishes the whole expanse of who you are. And depending on where your consciousness is and depending on where your mind is, if you're very heavily invested in only what's going on in the 3D world and not trying to see the expansive sort of understanding of that we are eternal and that we are eternal beings, then of course you're going to only worry about the suffering. But there is, and we're going to disagree on this, you and me. I believe that there is like an oversoul for animals, for example, and they know that when they are here, that some of them are going to be food, okay? And they don't ask for the suffering, okay? But there is a knowing from the oversoul of the animals that they are part of this cycle in this particular realm, okay? And I think that is also the case for some of us. So the soul that incarnates into a horrible family where they become a baby or a child that is heavily abused and then dies very shortly afterwards, the soul chose to experience that and then leave. And one thing that's really helped me understand a lot of this is watching people's testimonials about near-death experiences. That's something that's really kind of, if you want to feel a lot better about the afterlife and what is going on here and what is the meaning of all of this, go and watch a whole bunch of near-death experiences. That's my take on it anyway.
I feel that animals are here as a test of our morality. I think they're here, they're doing a service to us on a spiritual level. And I think there was a famous quote from Gandhi. I need to look it up, but I think he said something along the lines of, you can judge how compassionate a society is by the way it treats its animals. So given that we've got these horrific abattoirs all over the world and all the trauma and the suffering and the fear that comes from the animals that go to these places, just think of the vibrational frequencies that are getting sent out into the morphic field from that. So, we failed on that level alone.
Yeah, and they purposefully put the abattoirs on these ley lines so that it's kind of
so the fear goes through the energy grid system of the earth.
Fear goes into the energy.
It gets amplified.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's probably what's keeping the frequency of this realm sort of low. And what I think was happening in this realm is that we are now we had to wake up and see the horror. And we have to now undo all of this, all of these structures. This is why, and I want to say this publicly, I'm going to do a video about it. This Nasara Jasara thing is not going to happen. The reason why is because the lesson for us as souls is it has to be...
I heard it was happening next Wednesday at 5:00.
There has to be this undoing from our own lessons. The same with homeschooling and all of that. What's happening now in the world is people saw during lockdowns that school sucks, right? That the whole system's not working. The kids are broken, that there's a lot more kids that with special needs. There's a lot more kids where the system is not going to work. I've tried my daughter in all sorts of schools, okay? Independent schools and Steiner schools and all that sort of stuff. And if she doesn't fit the thing that we've got, the institutions that we've got, you've got to create your own. The same with people pulling out of, you know, what's happening with the economy and things like that. People are starting to realize how to untangle themselves from these constructs, these things that they believe, you know, they're studying common law and all of these things. And these are the stuff that Mark Passio was talking about long ago, about natural law and maritime law and all of these things. People are starting to learn it. And I think that this also, obviously, the food, the whole entire big food, big pharma, everybody is starting to learn that we have to undo this. And it's happening slowly, but we have to unravel it ourselves. We're unfucking ourselves, basically. That's what I think is happening. You know, so I think that as far as animals being a test, of course they are. Of course they are. That is their ultimate sacrifice for all of us.
They're a test for us of how moral we are, how compassionate we are, how caring we are, and look at how miserably we failed collectively as a species on that front. Yeah. I mean, a question that I addressed with Mike in our chat was, why does the food chain in nature have to be so brutal and horrific? You've got creatures, you know, eating other creatures alive for sustenance. That's horrific. It's brutal.
Yeah. When you really think about it.
I made the comment to Mike that somebody of a cynical nature or maybe an atheistic nature might say, what kind of God, what kind of loving, benevolent creator would put into place a system where fear, suffering, and death is necessary for the survival of species? And one sort of suggestion we came up with is human consciousness is in such a degraded state collectively, and we are exuding low density vibrational frequencies rooted in fear, derivatives of fear, stress, anger, trauma, worry, all these things, all by design, because we've been manipulated into expressing ourselves that way. And because all this fear-based negative energy is going out there into the morphic field, it's causing all this suffering and death.
Yeah.
And we just speculated on if humanity were ever able to reach a point where we shake off this evil control system, get rid of all this darkness and this fear, and start living in more positive, love-based frequencies, maybe that brutality could end. I don't know. I doubt we'll ever find out. Not in these lifetimes, anyway.
We could raise our frequency and possibly, I mean, that's the intention, is that we raise our frequency into a different realm. And I guess that's our consciousness would go into another vibration, you know, a higher vibration. That's the whole concept of ascension. How that happens, I don't know. You know, do we know we're ascending, or does it just happen? Do we just wake up in a new reality? What is it? I know that multiple realities are happening at once. Why is it that when I do hypnosis and I travel to my consciousness is in different realms, and there's somewhere, you know, you don't eat and you don't drink and and you're living on a cloud, and then there's others that are, do you know what I'm saying? There's multiple realities, but why is our consciousness here? There's a reason for that, you know.
Yeah.
We could go on and on and on. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about in this session? I love talking to you because I like to have, you know, most people are very happy to be agreeable and not shake things up and not question things and not be cynical or skeptical in any way. What do you and I'm just really glad that you've come on and discussed all of this stuff with us. One last thing before you go, I do want to ask, what is it that people can expect for you on the tour that you're doing around Australia? I mean, you're always touring or doing something in your neck of the woods, but what are we going to expect on your little mini talk that you're doing?
Right. Well, it's going to be a variation on the talk that I had lined up for March 2020. It's an overview of the nefarious side of the corporate controlled music industry and what it's really used for. So mass mind control, pushing of social engineering agendas. I'm going to be exposing the military connections of many A-list artists. And I'm going to put an Australian twist on it as well. I'm going to talk about Kylie Minogue a bit, going to talk about Nick Cave, going to talk about Rolf Harris. Nobody talks about Rolf Harris, but I'm going to. And, a few other Australian artists. Michael Hutchence, what happened to Michael Hutchence?
Yeah.
So let's get into that. Let's have an Australian slant to this.
97 was a big year, wasn't it? We had
97,
Jeff Buckley die, Michael Hutchence died.
Princess Diana.
My dad died in 97 as well.
Wow.
So I think it was the same week that Princess Diana died. So we've got
so all of that, and it's going to be 4 gigs again. Just to recap, I'm going to be hitting in this order: Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Perth. So if anyone can get along to any of those gigs, it's early November. Okay. And I've got this crowdfunder going where I'm trying to raise the funds to just get my ass out there, and the details of the gigs are in there. But in terms of the content, it's going to be that. And I'm just looking forward to being able to share this information with an Australian crowd, because I have got a lot of love from Australia. I've got a lot of people that have messaged me from there over the past 2 or 3 years, and they've said, do you think you'll ever come here? And I love Australia. I loved those DJ trips that I did. It's a beautiful place. It's so unfortunate what's happened to it in terms of the control structure.
Had a lot of, asleep people, and Victoria, Melbourne has had the worst. But I went June last year to Melbourne to do a gig, a live stage event. I just wanted to show everyone your books as well. Are you going to be, so a lot of the information would it be covered in these books that you're going to be talking about on your tour? Yeah.
A lot of what is in the books will be discussed in the tour.
Fantastic.
I'm going to have books with me at each of the gigs, so people can buy the books from me there if they would like to.
Wow, that's a big suitcase.
There's going to be some new information as well. So
excellent.
Obviously, we're in March now. That's going to be November. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to talk about by November. So I'll be putting all that into my talks. It's going to be great to just network, and I just love the social aspect of these events. Being around like-minded people, relaxing with a beer afterwards, and just having a good chat with people.
Wonderful.
I love all that.
Fantastic.
I thrive on that.
I can't wait to see you.
To get out there.
And you've got the novel, The Cause and the Cure. Everything is here. Yeah. I'm going to leave these links for Mark's website, your channel on YouTube. You've got a couple of channels taken down, or was it just one that got taken down? And then
I'm on my 3rd channel. I lost 2 on YouTube, but the 3rd one is surviving. And I'm also on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. I put my stuff up on there, and Spreaker for my audio, and Mixcloud for my music shows.
I'm going to have to pick your brain, because I want to do some sort of a podcast thing. I want to put some things on a podcast, and I need to pick your brain about that, but that's good.
Yeah, Spreaker's the best one.
Spreaker. Okay, excellent. Okay, that's been wonderful.
I did want to just leave with a final message, JC, if that's okay.
Of course.
I just wanted to leave listeners with the thought that I feel the New World Order master plan should be much further along by this point than it is. And I think that's good news. And I think the reason that it's not much further along is because of the resistance that's been encountered by the controllers from the likes of us. And I complain often about the fact that there's not enough awake people out there, and what the hell is wrong with people? Why can't they see what's really going on? But there are many who have come on board, particularly in the last 3 years, and there's quite a significant proportion of us now. It's nowhere near as big as I would like it to be, but I think it's been enough to have stemmed the tide to a certain extent. And I think the resistance so far has prevented all of us, the normies as well, who don't even know that anything's wrong, from being plunged into a much worse place than we could be in and we should be in according to their plans. I think they're running behind. I think we've put a lot of obstacles in their path, and I think we've not been as compliant, generally speaking, and we've not rolled over and taken it as much as they'd hoped we would. I think their fatal mistake is to assume that we're all useless idiots. We're all just dumb morons that fall for mind control. Clearly, many do, but a lot of us don't. And I think they've underestimated the degree to which some of us are intelligent enough and are conscious enough and are caring enough to be able to see through their bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's an encouraging thing, because they would like a lot more pieces of the puzzle to have been put in place by now. And that's why we're seeing them throwing everything they've got at us all at once now and making it so obvious. It's one thing after another after another. It's completely relentless. All these things they want to bring in, 15-minute cities, climate lockdowns, net zero, and all this bullshit. It's exposing what they really are to so many people.
Absolutely.
And so that's been encouraging so far, and it'll be very interesting to see how that whole scenario plays out. I don't do predictions. A lot of YouTube pundits do. Oh, this is going to happen, and by 6 months we'll be here. I don't do predictions because I don't know. And the truth is, nobody else knows either what's going to happen. We just have to continue to...
We have to live it.
Keep the activism stepped up, keep the resistance stepped up, always do what you know to be right, stand in right action, stand on the side of truth, freedom, justice, love, oppose evil, oppose darkness. And if you do that, you can't really go far wrong.
Thank you, Mark. Honestly, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you've come this far, because I did speak to you a long time ago, and I could see you feeling, the grief and the hopelessness of what was happening in the world. But I'm so grateful to see that you can see the hope at the very least, and how far we've come. Thank you so much.
2020 and 21 were horrible years, weren't they? They were horrible experiences. And I think 2023 should have been even worse in their plans.
Yeah.
But it's not. Our lives are better now than they were in 2021. And that's because we did something about it, or some of us did.
Yeah.
So, there's the hope. There's the hopeful message.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this show. Thank you. And I can't wait to see you. And I hope we get to talk before you come to Australia in November. And everybody, please help Mark get here, and to be able to travel and have the ability to travel. And I think this is a wonderful thing that you're doing. So glad to have you back.
Great. Thanks for getting me on the show, and looking forward to meeting you in person in November.
No worries, Mark. We'll see you then.